But plan within the church. Preparing disciples is A. Preparing disciples. There are 4 stages of discipleship intentionally. And number 1 is in early childhood, the period between ages 4 and 6, where you disciple around conscience. You disciple around conscience, God's essence, His trustworthiness. Our response, the common obedience and trust that's to God's trustworthiness that builds their conscience. Truth against lie. Storytelling through Bible events which focus on obedience or disobedience, faith and fear, trust and distrust. God's responses to one side and the other. The idea is that you're planting the seed for strong root development. Second stage is the late childhood development, the period of 7 to 11 years of age, and that's where you disciple around core values. Core values. Where the first is about God's essence, His trustworthiness. The second one is about God's ethics, His truthfulness. And man's response to that, character of integrity and honesty. Again, primary storytelling about Bible memorization, focusing on courage to doing right, commitment to stay right, completion to finish what you started rightly, focusing on doing what God says is right, the right way, for the right reason, with the right motive, and trusting God for the right results. That is the watering of the roots that you put down for strong shoot development. Third is the early adolescence, periods between ages 12 and 15, where you disciple around convictions. Convictions, where we have built line upon line and precept upon precept, God's essence, His trustworthiness, God's ethics, His truthfulness. This is God's essentialness, and that is His trueness. That's the factualness. Our response, Christianity, facts and faith. Topical teaching on hard subjects of life and hard to believe subjects from the Bible, focusing on the master of life, the meaning of life, and the message of life. And that is the nurturing the sapling of convictions for maximum fruit production. And then the stage 4 is the late adolescence, the period between ages 16 and 19, where you are primarily focusing not on storytelling so much or topical teaching so much. You did topical teaching on hard subjects under early adolescent, but now it's exegetical teaching and contextual observations about the losses and gains of following or not following Christ, concentrating on the culmination of the 5 Gospels, that is the 5 Great Commission passages, carrying out the Gospel, the Acts, and the Apostles, and that is discipleship around counting the cost, discipling around counting the cost, God's effectiveness, God's effectiveness. Our response is Christ's Great Commission. You're harvesting the fruit, you're harvesting the tree for fruits. Each added stage is one built or budded upon another. So B, where the A is preparing disciples, B is preparing for a harvest. I'm only going to mention these to you. I think that you have some writing there. You'll have these notes in full in just another week. Number 1, cast your eyes from your church to the foreign field. 2 Corinthians 10, for we are come as far as to you to preach the gospel in the regions beyond you. You're going to probably need to redesign your church's missions policy to account for the fruit that will come from your own tree rather than counting on the fruit that comes from other people's trees. Secondly, you need to clear your obligations. Clear your obligations of doing the work in other people's local churches. Local churches in America or elsewhere are biblical churches when they are independent, autonomous, and indigenous, and they operate that way. There are invested missionaries, A and B. There are invested missionaries who do not meet the criteria of independent, autonomous, or indigenous, which you can finish your commitment either immediately or incrementally, so as to not to intentionally hurt them. And there are inquiring missionaries who do not meet this independent criteria, from whom you can withhold any commitment to them. So number 3 would be to calculate your resources. Cast your eyes, clear your obligations, calculate your resources for the missionary, ministry, preachers sent from your church, ministering on behalf of you in the unreached regions beyond you. Let me just point out what some of you probably already know and have preached on about the word provision. The word provision comes from the Latin word provisio, meaning a foreseeing or a foresight. Provision. Pro means before, vision means sight. It is derived from the verb provider, meaning to look ahead and to prepare, to supply, or to act with foresight. When we look at our missions policies and our missions budgets, we need to be able to provide for harvest in faith of missionaries who God will give you regardless of what your church has done or what its present state is. Because you don't know who is in your church, who will come to your church, or who you will go out and win to Christ. Who will, when handled properly, biblically, as a disciple under your shepherding and in your church, who you will give accountability for one day before the throne, who cannot with great integrity and character and spiritual fortitude go to any one of the 7,300, a third of the world's population, yet unreached and underreached people groups, who will be born, live, get married, have children, grow old, and die generationally without accidentally or intentionally ever hearing the gospel of Jesus Christ. But you have a God, divine, and designed church that biblically can and should be producing someone who has the integrity, the character, and the spiritual depth of fortitude to be able to take on that task. You do. It's just the nature of the church that God has trusted into your care, and He is the head over it. It's the way that is.
It's just one word, and it may seem small, but the impact is great, and it matters to all. Faithful in thought, in word and deed, in the choices we make and the lives that we lead. Faithfulness matters, though no one's around, seeming hopeless with no sight of a crown. Faithfulness matters when life comes apart. Stay faithful to God. He'll strengthen your heart. You may not see what lies before, and the doubts and the fears blind the path even more. And though you feel like you're all alone in the trial that you face, God will make Himself known. Faithfulness matters, though no one's around, seeming hopeless with no sight of a crown. Faithfulness matters when life comes apart. Stay faithful to God. He'll strengthen your heart. He was faithful in death, triumphant in life. The example to all. He's the truth and the light. Faithfulness matters, though no one's around, seeming hopeless with no sight of a crown. Faithfulness matters when life comes apart. Stay faithful to God. He'll strengthen your heart. Faithfulness matters, though no one's around, seeming hopeless with no sight of a crown. Faithfulness matters